Yo, 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 yo. With a dude, Chicken Stew YouTube. It's the Copper Color King. And we back in this bad boy with some more good content. I got a real interesting one for the folks today. Something worth researching. Definitely doing more research on this for many days to come. Because it just raises a lot of questions in the back of my head. Right, so before I get started, I just would like to ask you folks to like, comment, and subscribe. Click that notification bell to stay up to date on all content and stay plugged in like an extension cord. And please, if you haven't yet, I say this as a reminder. This is a reminder for people. If you haven't yet, make sure you go check out the Copper Colors coloring books. Out now on Amazon, $10 a pop, diving into 3 different topics. And then we got a 2.0 or part 2 coming October 27th of the copper colored inventions. A bunch of inventions in this one that a lot of folks didn't even know were made by black people. Copper colored people. All images, black and white, utilize it at your leisure. This is something that I do myself, especially when I'm stressed out. I just color my life away because it helps me rekindle my creativity. It helps me rekindle my connection with my creative side. And my creative side helps me relieve a lot of that stress. We all go through stress. And one thing I tell people, stress kills. So we have to find whatever outlets that we possibly can to be able to cope with that stress. The goal is to live a long, luxurious, beautiful life. And by all means, that's what the Most High wants for us as well. So make sure you get you some copper colors, some copper colors coloring books. Show some support. I do have a couple people that I promised to get some copies to them for free. So we got a lot going on with these. So more or less. Now, as you guys seen in the image here, the Chicxulub Impact event. Now, I know this is what I call it. I call it the real Big Bang. The real Big Bang. That scenario that they talk about where they say the asteroid hit the Earth and destroyed a bunch of dinosaurs and killed all life on the planet and blah, 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 blah. That was from my research, this is my take, and this is why I'm bringing it to the channel instead of a live today, because I want to see what people think about this. I want y'all to let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts? How do you feel about this? But yeah, the Chicxulub Impact event. Now, this event is documented as being, we're gonna learn a little bit right here, an impact crater that is buried underneath the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Is buried underneath. Its center is offshore, but the crater is named after the onshore community of the Chicxulub Pueblo. It was formed slightly over 66 million years ago when an asteroid about 10 kilometers, 6 miles in diameter, struck Earth. The crater is estimated to be 200 kilometers, 120 miles in diameter, and 1 kilometer, 0.62 miles in depth. It is believed to be the second largest impact structure on Earth, and the only one whose peak ring is intact and directly accessible for scientific research. Now, in this little first paragraph alone, I want people to think about this. The crater is 120 miles wide. And the asteroid, quote unquote, itself is 6 miles wide. Now, that's pretty big. That's pretty big to cause some real catastrophic climatical changes within the Earth's atmosphere. The ground, the gravel, the sediment, the earth bed, that's enough to change a lot, right? A lot. And I'm not no big time scientist, right? I can only recite what I know based off of what I learned in science class in school and the Science Channel. I used to be a fan of that stuff before I actually developed this belief that science is really demon worship in some shapes and forms, right? You can't tell us that the world was started or reset by a big bang that killed dinosaurs and then up came humans and monkeys that turned into humans and da 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 da. When we have the biblical Genesis story within itself, for those who don't know, Genesis is like saying genetics. So that whole Genesis verse in the Bible is basically saying this is the genes, the genetics, the ancestry of man. And I'm not going to sit here and say like I'm a big believer of the Bible, right? But at the end of the day, to me, it will always overweigh science. Sometimes I don't even understand science. Like, how can you measure something that is said to be 66 million years old? However, the crater's peak ring is still intact and accessible for scientific research. When you have things that have existed on this planet that no longer exist, you cannot do research on some of the things that have once existed on this planet because it has been eroded and destroyed, right? Destroyed by the earth itself, by Mother Nature. Mother Nature do away with a lot of that stuff. However, this 66 million year old crater is still intact and accessible for scientific research, right? So the crater was discovered by Antonio Camargo and Glenn Penfield, geophysicists who had been looking for petroleum in the Yucatan Peninsula during the late 1970s. Penfield was initially unable to obtain evidence that the geological feature was a crater and gave up his search. However, later, through contact with Alan R. Heidelbrand in 1990, Penfield obtained samples that suggested it was an impact feature. Evidence for the crater's impact origins include shocked quartz, gravity anomaly, and pterygites, gravel-sized bodies composed of black, green, brown, or gray natural glass in surrounding areas. So in this crater, you had like glass, natural glass, with a gravity anomaly at the location on the Earth's surface is different between the observed value of gravity and the value predicted by a theoretical model. If the Earth were an ideal oblate spheroid of uniform density, then the gravity measured at every point on the surface would be given precise. What does it say? I didn't look into this one. Well, moving forward though, the date of the impact coincides with the Cretaceous Paleogene boundary, commonly known as the KPG or KT boundary. It is now widely accepted that the devastation and climate disruption resulting from the impact was the primary cause of the Cretaceous Paleogene extinction event. Now, this extinction event was responsible for 75% of plant and animal species disappearing on Earth, including all non-avian dinosaurs. Dragons, they speak about these dragons in the Bible as well, right? So for those who are believers of this stuff right here, this is basically what they saying from what I'm reading is like responsible for the Big Bang. It killed 75% of life. It killed 75% of life, of species on this earth. This Chicxulub Crater in the Yucatan Peninsula. Now, just getting into this information alone just makes this stuff all the more spicy, right? Because we know the Big Bang to be responsible for killing off all of the life on Earth and setting that great reset. That is also known as the flood or the deluge. See, I don't believe in the Big Bang. I don't believe that there was an asteroid that hit and killed dinosaurs and whatnot. Even though asteroids do hit the Earth, it wasn't no dinosaurs to kill. That whole story is hijacked, and what proves that is the Genesis story within itself. Right? Within itself, The Most High wanted to reset the earth. They wanted to reset. And the only way to do this, right, would be this flood, this biblical flood. So let's just read over this biblical flood real quick. It's from Genesis chapters 6 through 9, verses 9 and 17. So let's see. It says, Noah and the flood. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all of the people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both of them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside out. Now, real quick, where can we find cypress wood? All right. Now, these cypress oak wood trees grow in wet, swampy areas, mostly in the southeastern United States. Shout out to ancestors. They can be found along the Atlantic coastal plain, along the Gulf of Mexico, and the Mississippi River. All of this in America. Right? Alone. We could take this alone and make our own hypotheses of specifically how we can connect this Bible story in this crater, this Chicxulub crater. The Chicxulub crater is located in the Yucatan Peninsula. That is literally right off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. Right there go the Gulf of Mexico, right here. And the crater, the Chicxulub crater, would be right here, right where we got the pinpoint. Right, but they said these cypress trees only grow pretty much along these lines, right? These coastal lines, going up into the Mississippi, Gulf of Mexico, very wet, very swampy because of the water. Y'all know how it go already. Y'all know America's landscape as far as the swampland in Louisiana, the swampland in the Yucatan, the swamplands in Mexico. We got them all over, along that area. And what they're telling us is that these cypress trees can be found basically along the Atlantic coastal plain. Now, basically, that's exactly what it says. And Noah made himself an ark out of cypress, found here in America. So if we take that information, this places the biblical flood in America, right along the Gulf of Mexico. And we might as well just say the Yucatan, right? The Yucatan. So with that being said, we can make the claim that civilization started where? Here in America, ancient America, the true old world, right? Let's continue. It's going to get spicy. This is how you are able to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the ark, right? And after he did all this, he said, I am going to bring flood waters on the earth. This is from God. I am going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring the ark into all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything as God commanded. Noah was only 600 years old when the floodwaters came to earth, right? And they entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. This ark that was built out of this cypress. So let's continue. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. Just listen to this, because we're going to read about the event, about what happened when this Chicxulub crater hit the earth, right? Remember that this is in the Bible. Remember this, right? In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day, on the second month, on that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On that very day Noah and his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild animal according to its kind, all livestock according to their kinds, every creature that moves along the ground according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, everything with wings. Pairs of all creatures that have the breath of life in them came to Noah and entered the ark. The animals going in were male and female of every living thing, as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord shut him in. Right? Then the Lord shut him in. So that's the series of events prior to Noah surviving the flood in his ark. So we could, people got to understand, right? Even though the Bible was constantly rewritten, it still tells a story. It tells a story similar to a fairy tale. Something that's coming out of the Chronicles of Narnia, like something similar to that. Which proves to us that some form of these mythologies that exist on this world are partially true. It's partially true because it's the same story in every different religion. Every religion has a deluge flood myth story, which means this existed. There's a chance that this actually happened outside of the scientific hypotheses of this scenario, which would be the Big Bang. Every different religion is way older than science. Some of the religions on this earth are older than the English language itself. So that's older than the KJV, right? The Torah, one of the oldest works, right? One of the oldest works. They all speak of this story. Now, let's talk about this Chicxulub crater again in the Yucatan. Right? Shout out ancient America, the true old world. So look, it says research shows how Gulf of Mexico escaped ancient mass extinction. As a matter of fact, before we even read into that, let's check this out, right? So peep this. So it says the Chicxulub structure, and this is from actually the superficial geology of the Chicxulub Impact Crater in Yucatan, Mexico. Right? This is an official document from NASA. From the NASA website, aka, I'm not even going to blow the lid off of this one, but coin this, y'all. Coin this. NASA means niggas always saying anything. Niggas always saying anything. They say anything. Straight up. Right? Straight up. Check this out. So, yes, the Chicxulub structure in northern Yucatan, Mexico was first interpreted as an impact crater based upon a discovery of a concentric pattern of magnetic and gravimetric anomalies. A series of recent findings indicate that the Chicxulub structure is the long sought after impact crater whose iridium-rich ejecta blanketed much of the globe at the Cretaceous Tertiary boundary, and which probably caused the mass extinction that marked this geologic transition. This is the long sought for impact crater whose iridium rich ejecta blanketed much of the globe, right? They talking about the Big Bang, the crater that allegedly killed the dinosaurs. This is the long sought for crater. Found it. NASA themselves stating that this is the quote unquote crater. Remember, niggas always saying anything. So we can't always believe what NASA says now, right? We don't even know if this is a crater to begin with, to start with, right? This could all be remnants of something else, something that connects us back to the Bible story, right? But yeah, so as they just said, this is what probably caused the mass extinctions that mark this geological transition, right? And this right here, this article just goes into the science of the crater. So I'm not too informed when they talking about all of this stuff, right? C note ring, all of that. I'm not too informed when they talking about that. But one thing for sure that they do say, right? They say that it is a chain of sinkholes is found along this boundary zone, and they call that the C note ring. This is the C note ring, right? A chain of sinkholes. It was adapted from the Yucatec Maya word "diz or not." Diz or not. Diz or not. It is adapted from the Yucatec Maya word. Right, here they go. These scientists taking things from the ancient inhabitants who once lived and dwelt on this land, who probably had more knowledge of what was going on in this area than any scientist at this very day, right? I'll tell y'all this. The geographical changes caused by this crater resulted in many hurricanes and tsunamis and typhoons, and the very makeup of the weather in the Gulf of Mexico itself. This crater, quote unquote, is responsible for all that. Just to let you guys know. Right, that's something that we don't know, and we were never taught that, right? Why did we never learn about this? Right, this basically debunks that Big Bang story, right? Let's go into it. So like I said, research shows how Gulf of Mexico escaped ancient mass extinction. An ancient bout of global warming 56 million years ago that acidified oceans and wiped out marine life had a milder effect in the Gulf of Mexico, where life was sheltered by the basin's unique geology, according to research by the University of Texas Institute for Geophysics. Published in the journal Marine and Petroleum Geology, the findings not only shed light on the ancient mass extinction, but can also help scientists determine how current climate change will affect marine life and aid in efforts to find deposits of oil and gas, right? All for their profits. This is what the scientists want to do. They just want to discover deposits of oil and gas. The same thing that they did in the 1970s when they discovered the crater to begin with. And although the Gulf of Mexico is very different today, UTIG geochemist Bob Cunningham, who led the research, said that valuable lessons can be drawn about climate change today from how the Gulf was impacted in the past. Right? Listen to what they just said. And although the Gulf of Mexico is very different today, UTIG geochemist Bob Cunningham, who led the research, said that valuable lessons can be drawn about climate change today from how the Gulf was impacted in the past. Just think about it, right? They saying that the changes that's happening with the climate today basically is resulted from what happened in the Gulf in the past. So the weather in the Gulf today, that hot cold that causes all these hurricanes and stuff like that, is a result from what happened in the past, is a result from this quote unquote crater. All of these hurricanes and different, what we say here in America, I forgot the term, but all of these hurricanes and stuff like that are basically the end result of the crater. That's basically what they're saying. This event, known as the Paleocene Eocene Thermal Maximum, or PETM, is very important to understand because it's pointing towards a very powerful, albeit brief, injection of carbon into the atmosphere that's akin to what's happening now, he said. Check that out. Isn't that crazy? So everything that's happening now in the Gulf of Mexico, right, in the Gulf of Mexico, because hurricanes form in the Gulf of Mexico. We trying to see how do, right? How do. We turn this into a science class. Gulf hurricanes like Katrina or Hurricane Ike begin their lives as tropical disturbances off of the coast of West Africa. These storms can grow over warm waters of the Atlantic Ocean and make their way into the Gulf of Mexico as fully formed Gulf hurricanes. Gulf hurricanes like Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Ike, they start their lives as tropical disturbances off of the coast of West Africa. See, I didn't even know this stuff myself. Now we getting into it. Off of the coast of West Africa. So they're saying they start as tropical storms and then they make their way into the Gulf. And what happens in the Gulf is that they turn into hurricanes, Gulf hurricanes. Storms frequently form in the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, and the tropical Atlantic Ocean as far as east as the Cape Verde Islands. The warm waters. So basically, when we going back into the article, the event known as the Paleocene Eocene Thermal Maximum is very important to understand. This event that injected the carbon into the atmosphere is pretty much what's causing all of that warmth in the Gulf, right? Because what does carbon cause heat? Does carbon cause heat? Let's see. Carbon could raise the average global temperatures, right? Carbon raises temperatures in general. So could this be what causes the heat? That carbon from the crater that was injected from the crater that turns these tropical storms into hurricanes. This is crazy, right? This is crazy. I told y'all this one is going to be very informative. So now if we take this and we bring it back to the Bible story, we can instantly correlate it to the flood. Bring it right back to the flood. Watch. Cunningham and his collaborators investigated the ancient period of global warming and its impact on marine life and chemistry by studying a group of mud, sand, and limestone deposits found across the Gulf. They sifted through rock chips brought up during oil and gas drilling and found an abundance of microfossils from radiolarians, a type of plankton that has surprisingly thrived in the Gulf during the ancient global warming. They concluded that a steady supply of river sediments and circulating ocean waters had helped radiolarians and other microorganisms survive, even while Earth's warming climate became more hostile to life. Right, this warming climate, they just talking about when the Most High sent the waters forth and flooded the lands and all the volcanoes and all of these different things started happening at one time that changed the geographical land, the makeup of the earth, right? Of the earth. That's all they talking about when these scientists make these, like, they use these big words and climate change and whatever the case may be, for those who, you know, who are on my page with this stuff. Right, it says in a lot of places the ocean was absolutely uninhabitable for anything. said UTIG biostratigrapher Maurice Perky Phillips. But we just don't seem to see as severe an effect in the Gulf of Mexico as has been elsewhere, right? They haven't seen any severities of effects anywhere else other than the Gulf of Mexico. That's the only place they see this stuff at. In the Yucatan, where these cypress trees are, right? These cypress trees that Noah built his ark out of. Ancient America, the true old world. The reasons for that go back to geological forces reshaping North America at the time. About 20 million years before the ancient global warming, the rise of the Rocky Mountains had redirected rivers into the northwest Gulf of Mexico. A tectonic shift known as the Laramide Uplift, sending much of the continent's rivers through what is now Texas and Louisiana into the Gulf deeper water. So, in other words, right, the rise of the Rocky Mountains is just the land coming up out of the primordial waters and the water draining out through these river streams, right, into the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know if people know this, right, or even have this type of theory, but I think America was the first land to come up out of the flood. The first land. So Noah built his ark in the Yucatan and then sailed to the United States, basically. He sailed it to the United States and found landfall or made his home, and this is just my theory, up the Mississippi River, right, at this time. When global warming hit in North America became hotter and wetter, the rain-filled rivers fire-hosed nutrients and sediments into the basin, providing plenty of nutrients for phytoplankton and other food sources for the radiolarians, right? But look, North America became hotter and wetter, right? Just swamps are just basically, what is a swamp? A swamp is just a body of land that was once covered by water, right? What are salt flats? Bodies of land that were once covered by water. The same thing goes for the Salt Lake in Utah. The same thing goes for the Grand Canyon, and the same thing goes for the swamps here in America. All of those places once being covered by water. And what happened with the water? Well, after the flood event and the land came out of the water, basically, they drained through the rivers, the great rivers that drain into the Gulf of Mexico, making it this deep gulf, right? This deep body of water that was once bigger, if not for the whole flood scenario, right? I might be getting too deep for some people, but after watching this video, you guys are gonna have a clear understanding of where I'm getting at. Anywho, so what it says, right? The Gulf of Mexico is a tremendous natural archive of geological history that's also very closely surveyed, he said. We use this very robust database to examine one of the highest thermal events in the geological record, and I think it's given us a very nuanced view of a very important time in Earth's history. These are the scientists' claims. In other words, basically saying, man, this is probably one of the most important events that has happened in the history of man. One of the most important ones sitting right on our doorstep. That's crazy. Some more information on it, right? So yeah, we know that matter of fact, they about to go even deeper. So the Chicxulub Impact event was an 100 million megaton blast that devastated the Gulf of Mexico region, right? Things lived in this area. It was land there, right? The Gulf of Mexico was a bigger body of water, right? It was a bigger body of water, and you had many different species of animals living there. And peep how they just using the dinosaurs in the background and all of this stuff right here. This is just to throw you off, right? To throw you off on the truth, right? This is all hijacked. But yeah, let's continue. So the blast generated a core of superheated plasma in excess of 10,000 degrees. Although that thermal pulse would have been relatively short-lived, a handful of minutes, it would have been lethal for nearby life, right? They saying this was 100 million megaton blast that had plasma that pretty much spread out over the continent that was basically 10,000 degrees, right? Burning anything that comes within its reach, right? The Chicxulub Impact event produced a shockwave and air blast that radiated across the seas, right? It radiated across the seas, over coastlines, and deep into the continental interior. Winds far in excess of 1,000 kilometers per hour were possible near the impact site. Although they decreased with the distance from the impact site, the pressure pulse and winds would have scored soils and shredded vegetation and any animals living in the nearby ecosystems. What the Most High said. The Most High said, right? Because the world was becoming too evil. It's too evil. He said he is going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has a breath of life in it. Every creature, right? AKA shredding vegetation and any animals living in nearby ecosystems. We making it make sense now. An initial estimate of the area damaged by the air blast was a radius of 1,500 kilometers. There are several factors that can affect this estimate, so the uncertainty might be better reflected in a range of radii from 900 to 1,800 kilometers. The travel times are quite short, so this effect would have occurred in advance of any failing debris ejected from the Chicxulub crater. So this crater caused gale to hurricane force winds that extended over the southern part of the continent, right? It created gale to hurricane force winds. Now, this was due to the impact and the heat, the severe air blast, just brushing out and destroying everything in its path, right? And here we have deposits of the crater that can be found as far as Canada. Deposits of the crater that can be found as far as Canada, right? Anybody willing to go up there and check that out? We even have some that look like it would be in the Grand Canyon. Looking at this map, deposits of the Chicxulub Impact still existing today. The debris landed within minutes of the Gulf of Mexico and Caribbean region. Depending on the distance from the impact site, the debris was rocky rubble, impact melted spewers, or mixtures of both. Life on the continental landscape and marine seafloor was buried beneath impact ejecta that was several hundred meters thick near the impacted site and decreased with radial distance. Along the Campeche Bank, 350 to 600 kilometers from Chicxulub, impact deposits of 50 to 300 meters have been logged in boreholes, right? Because the impact occurred at sea, tsunamis radiated across the Gulf of Mexico, crashing onto nearby coastlines, and also radiated far across the Proto-Caribbean and Atlantic basins, right? It went over to the New World because this is America. This is the old world. This is where the Big Bang happened, quote unquote. This is the home of the deluge, the home of Noah's story, America, the Yucatan. The Yucatan, right? But they saying that it caused tsunamis that radiated all the way across the Atlantic. Right? How crazy is that? How crazy is that, right? Lower estimates suggest the waves were only 50 to 100 meters high, while some estimates suggest the tsunamis were 100 to 300 meters high. when they crashed onto Gulf shores and tore through coastal ecosystems. The tsunamis may have penetrated more than 100 kilometers inland before the backwash swept continental debris back into the Gulf of Mexico, where it was deposited in seafloor channels, right? This is where America's history, or this is where the world's history resides, deep in the Gulf of Mexico. You want to find some old, interesting stuff? Go scuba dive the Gulf of Mexico. You probably don't survive, but go give it a shot, right? Both the initial waves and the resulting backwash deeply eroded the seafloor to depths of several hundred meters. The impact also generated a seismic pulse roughly equivalent to a magnitude 10 earthquake. That seismic activity caused huge landslides on the seafloor, ripping through any colonies of life. So not only did it cause a tsunami, but it caused an earthquake. And then with earthquakes, we know we have volcanic eruptions, right? We got landslides. We have so many different catastrophes that can occur, that had occurred because of this impact crater, right? This goes back to the flood story. What did the Most High said he was going to do? He said he is going to bring flood waters onto the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Flood waters, tsunamis, right? Seismic pulses shaking the ground. The ground is shaking, right? Swinging the water back and forth. Raising tides, right? Swallowing whole bodies of land. Up until the point, like they just said, until the water receded and these lands came out of the water. Right, new lands coming out of the water with the deposits, or what existed on the land prior, being now left at the bottom of the ocean. This makes me think about stuff like this right here, right? The Bimini Trail. That's one of the most interesting things in the Caribbean to me right now. The Bimini Trail, Bimini Road, is underwater. It's a rock formation underwater. Now, for it to be formated with rock means it had to be above the water at some point. But how did it get under the water? How did Florida shorelines recede? How did the Grand Canyon become the Grand Canyon? These are the questions that we need to ask, right? What caused these things, right? In terms of the landscape changing, right? Everybody don't even know. All of the continents was connected at some point. So who's to say this wasn't the point where they were connected? It say 66 million years ago this allegedly occurred. The earth went through several different changes. Right? And all of these continents were connected at one point. And when the Most High sent the flood, it separated everything. When the great deluge happened, everything separated. Right? Everything separated. And just look at this picture right here. This is an illustration from an author. Basically a painting showing the waters. The waters now coming forth to cover the land, basically to flood the land, right? To flood the land. And just check out these pictures too, right? This is where it gets even more interesting. So these are in Mexico, right? Another classic location is Arroyo El Membral in Mexico, where the boundary sediments are several meters thick and very complex. Because of their proximity to the Chicxulub Crater, the lower portion of the sequence is composed of altered impact melt spillers. Above the spillers is sand that contains abundant plant debris. The plant debris is out of place because the site was far offshore at the time of impact and is composed of seafloor sediments deposited beneath 500 meters of water. Thus, the plant debris seems to be materially carried seaward by the backwash of a tsunami. So basically, the tsunami took the plant from the water and brought it to the earth and brought it to the to the surface. Tsunamis causing plants to leave their homes underwater and find new homes outside of water, right? This is evolution at its finest. At its finest. At its finest. And it's crazy because look, we got more, right? These are tsunami deposits. This is in Mexico. Proof that the water, right? One, that the water levels were definitely different and that it changed. It changed the landscape. Plant debris in a tsunami backwash deposit at the Cretaceous Tertiary KT boundary. Right? These are plant deposits, plant debris from the tsunami backwash that evidently occurred during the time when the crater impacted. Here we have rock sediments with waves in them, right? This is just erosion from water. That's erosion from water, right? So either the rock came up out of the water, right? Either this land came up out of the water, right? Or the tsunamis brought these rocks onto the land. But this is just proof either way that the water either could have been higher and that lands were submerged deeper in the waters, or that new lands came up out of the water and old lands went into the water. Hence, like Atlantis and Lemuria being quote unquote buried under the sea, right? When we take it that far, right? If we take it that far, just check this out. This is amazing. This is amazing. This is water erosion, right? And like I just did a live stream on the ancient Chinese accounts of the Grand Canyon. I got a part 2 coming to that one real soon. And what they speak about in that one, about the water that existed in the Grand Canyon years ago, man, is mind blowing. It is mind blowing, right? The things that happen here in America, the things that exist here in America, they changed the game. What else we got? It says, the story of how the Gulf of Mexico was affected is based on the work of a large number of geologists, but the work of Jan Smith and his colleagues has been particularly insightful. A good introduction to the geological details is a review paper by Smith. Another key resource is a guidebook to several KT boundary locations in northeastern Mexico. As described in the previous drilling projects webpage, scientists recently re-explored the Chicxulub Impact Crater with IODP-ICDP Chicxulub Expedition 364. While interpreting expedition results, the paleogeography of the region was reconstructed to illustrate how the surface of the earth was modified throughout the Gulf region. The expedition also studied impact-generated geological processes beneath the crater floor. Those studies showed that the crater created environmental conditions favorable for new ecosystems. The Earth's crust beneath the crater harbored a hydrothermal system that hosted microbial life that thrives in high temperature conditions, like black people. But this last part though, right? The crater created environmental conditions favorable for new ecosystems, new life. It created new life, new ecosystems, new lands coming out of the water, and old lands going in the water. Right? This is actually the size of the crater right here. That's the crater. And this would be a map looking at it today. Matter of fact, when we look at Google Maps, you can almost somewhat see that there was land here, right? This is the old coast of Florida's shoreline. That's Florida's old coast. All of this used to be land. That all used to be land that was once covered by water. Right? These two gulfs connected once upon a time. The Gulf of California and the Gulf of Mexico. They connected once upon a time. And this was all land. And this crater was responsible for the changes that happened in this entire area. In this entire area, as we just saw. I don't know, man. I want people to let me know in the comments below, what do they think about this one, about this crater? I mean, we got to look at it from this perspective. What we know about true history today is that there is a huge possibility that civilization could have started in the Yucatan Peninsula. There's a huge possibility, and we can't sleep on that. We can't just stick to the out of Africa theory, because the out of Africa theory tells us that we are monkeys, which doesn't explain the great marvels that we have here in America. The pyramids, right? The pyramids we got, like the pyramid of Cholula, right? The temples, the Mayan temples, right? Moundville, or the pyramids here in America. I'm always mention Grand Canyon. We still don't have an explanation for those things. Here right on our front door in America. Right? And people could side with science all they want. All I know is science does not support fact, right? They go off hypotheses and what ifs and possibly 66 million years ago and experiments and all of that. None of it is ever accurate. But one thing that has never lied, right? That has never lied and will never lie to us or to man up until this very day is the word of God. The word of God has been so accurate that there are things that we could probably discover 50 years from today that will furthermore support the word of God. And I rest my case, man. This was the Chicxulub Impact event explained. I connected it to the flood deluge Bible story. And I just want people to let me know in the comments below. What do y'all think about this one? What would y'all take? What would y'all make of the information that I provided to y'all today? Right? What kind of theories or analysis or hypotheses can you come up with yourself that explains stuff like this? How do we explain stuff like this? It's unexplainable. It is unexplainable, especially considering the changes that came with the impact event. We talking about tsunamis, floods, and volcanic eruptions, seismic 10-point on the scale magnitude earthquakes. 10-point. 10. That's the worst it can get. And this crater, the waves from this crater went as far as the Atlantic. So could this crater be what sunk Atlantis? Right? Like I said, old lands going under the water and new lands coming above the water. New ecosystems for life to thrive. Right? Just think about it, man. The Most High said, He will bring floodwaters on earth to destroy all life. And Noah was to make an ark out of cypress wood. Those trees you can only find here in America. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for listening. And until next time.